can be instead of a 5-year check-in, because a lot changes in 5 years, maybe that be a 2-year reevaluation, and it can be factored into the even years of our strategic planning sessions, like at the tail end,
Mhm.
since we have usually more room inside of the strategic sessions in those in between years. I think that's what it provides, is an opportunity to just kind of check in and see where you're at with your initiatives from the previous year. So just throwing it out there, maybe instead of a 5-year check-in, we do a 2-year and build it into our even year strategic plans.
Yes, sir. We'll be doing both of those. The 5-year check-in is part of the state code that requires us to do the check-ins. And that's where you do your more formal updating, adding bigger projects, going back out, doing some of the community engagement, maybe not necessarily to the level that we're going to do it this year, starting the plan. But you'll be back out, we'll be talking to stakeholders in the community and not starting from scratch, but doing a much more engaged process than the every 2 years is, or really every year, we're going to check in through the strategic planning process. And it will be a little more in depth at every 2 years. Like you said, that's kind of designed that way. But you're going to be having quarterly check-ins through these work sessions, annual check-ins during the strategic planning process. And then those 5 years, I guess you could call them refreshes or updates. And then that falls into the overall 10-year cycle, if that makes sense. The goal is to have these projects public facing and to constantly be getting that engagement and to make sure that council has that full picture of what our expected capital costs are going to be so that we can better plan. If you know we need 2 fire trucks this year and a knuckle boom, we're not necessarily going to plan some other capital needs in that year. And it just helps to give a long-term and a short-term financial forecast and view to the city.
And then I have one question.
Yes,
Just
sir.
For those that are here tonight, can you speak to a little bit about the role of the CIP support coordinator position? I know you guys are, looks like you're interviewing candidates,
Yes.
but what is the identified role of that individual?
So that position serves as the primary point of contact and coordinator within the capital projects team to make sure the right people are being communicated with, the documents are being stored and shared with the appropriate people, that our billing and our invoicing is being done in a timely manner so that our contractors want to continue to work with us. And they'll be taking on some of that procurement load off of Jay, hopefully. So putting together the RFPs, the RFQs, a lot of that upfront legwork so that the procurement officer is really just checking over everything and doing the scheduling and the actual meetings and opening the bids. That doesn't sound like a lot when we're sitting here talking, but I can tell you we've taken over gigabytes worth of information so far, and we're not even remotely close to being done transferring everything over. Keeping all of that, staying on top of it, and having an active capital improvements program, that's a pretty busy position. They can also assist with project management out in the field. 2025, 2026, with all these construction projects we're going to have for stormwater, it's going to be a lot for Raul to be out in the field managing each of those projects on a day-to-day basis. So that may take myself being involved and the support coordinator out in the field. And in the planning process, the support coordinator will be doing a lot of the surveying, going out into the community, working with the stakeholders to make sure that we're documenting the excuse me, the needs and the priorities that are identified during that planning process.
They'll also be doing grant writing, correct?
They will be doing grant writing as well.
Who's that person report to?
They report to Raul, the project director.
Thank you.
So is that in staff's vision, is that a 3-year position, or is this a position that we would look to maintain moving past that?
That is currently a full-time position, that's full-time exempt position that is built into our budget. It's existed for about 3 years now. And again, if the program built out the way we imagine it with the needs that we already know we have here in the city, I think both Raul's position and that position there's not going to be a shortage of work.
We're also just replacing somebody that's already in that position, right?
That is correct. We had an employee leave about a month ago. So we're filling an empty position there. Raul's position was created for this budget year. It had not existed previously. This is an ongoing funded position that we're just filling. It's open at this point. And those interviews have gone well. I believe Raul is working on scheduling the finalists. Thank you. Scheduling those finalists for a final round of interviews the first week of December.
Comments?
All right, with that, we're going to go to the public portal. I'm going to show you guys how to get there. Up on the screen, we can go to the City of Beaufort website, cityofbeaufort.org. It looks a little different on mobile devices. If you hover over government, go over to capital improvements program. Very sensitive mouse pad. Go down to capital projects. And it pulls up our public portal. This is available to council and any members of the public. And again, as we are going through and updating the system and migrating all of our documents over, you're going to see more tasks showing up in here. You're going to see those timelines on those tasks tightened up a bit, and you'll see more documents. So I'm just going to start over here on the left side of my screen, streetscapes. The projects are broken down into types. We have streetscapes, parks, facilities, stormwater, roadways, trails, other infrastructure, and then combined streetscape and stormwater. Don't have to spend much time on the 17021 project. It has been postponed. We'll discuss that again at the strategic planning work session to determine if that is a priority by council for next year. I will say we have discussed with the county's engineering team the possibility of tying this project into the Salem Road sidewalk project to potentially lower costs so that there's not a mobilization cost that the city is bearing just for a small section. If this is identified as a priority next year, we can go down that road and have those conversations. The basic information at the top, it's an active capital project. It's managed by myself as the project manager. The status is that it's postponed. The type of project, we give a basic description. We have our approved budget and our budget balance. In this case, it's nothing because we've pulled that funding at this point. Public updates, some of these will be short, some of these will be long. As you go through these, you'll see we try to update these monthly or at least when there's new data out there. Start and end dates, our estimations, and then tasks. These are all tasks that are assigned internally, and this is how we manage our projects internally, or going to be managing our projects internally. This will sync with our Microsoft 365 system, our calendars, our Outlook, and provide reminders and keep everybody on task. And then down at the very bottom, you have attachments. Most of these, the very first attachment is just a picture that is the logo for that project. But when we get to other projects where we have documents uploaded, like the Southside Park Phase 1 project, you'll see all of the progress reports from that in there, and those can be opened and accessed, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to those.
Real quick question, JJ.
Yes, sir.
So the approved or amended budget
Mhm.
speaks for itself. What is the definition of the budget balance? Is that amount spent or,
That's the current amount remaining within the budget, so it would be minus expenditures.
okay,
And we can set that up so that it shows expenses as a separate line. Right now, we're still manually updating our financial information. The system's not fully integrated. As we get that financial integration, the goal would be to be more transparent on that and have monthly budgets that show what the money has been spent on within each project.
and will that include what fund is feeding the project?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Airport Road is a completed project over on Ladies Island. We completed it back in the spring and it has been closed out. Completed projects do still show up in here, but you can filter those out. The Washington Street Park, Raul, if you want to come on up and join me. We'll be taking turns on some of these projects as Raul gets familiar with the system and gets up to speed on all these projects.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Staff has been working very diligently to keep the Washington Park project on track. Today, we met with one of the stakeholders and one of the design committee folks. We finalized the drawings that are going to move forward for construction this afternoon. So we are looking forward to just an awesome time of working together with those stakeholders and the architects and the folks that are going to be doing the construction. So far, we've got one bid, which is Beaufort Construction. And Jay, as we mentioned earlier, has just been working diligently to get those documents ready. And as of this afternoon, we are, I believe, complete and ready to go to CBDG for their review and their approval. 15 minutes ago, actually, he sent the documents and they confirmed that they have everything that they need to move forward with that approval. So we're looking forward to an amazing project for the city and for the folks in that community. Yes, sir.
Could you expand a little bit? I'm sorry. Could you expand a little bit on what led to the HDRB? I didn't see that meeting, but what led to the recommendation that the pavilion be lowered?
The HDRB had made some recommendations as far as the building and what it looked like. And then we also had some considerations. Those were safety related because of the height of the platform. And so we recommended that the platform be lowered and see if there would be any cost savings for the city.
Oh, so it's the platform, it's not the height of the cover?
No, sir. No, it was the platform.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what's the timeline on completion? Do you anticipate?
I don't believe we've gotten to a timeline on that project yet.
This portion is only where
It's design.
this is only the pavilion and moving to the basketball court. So then we have another phase to do the rest of the park. So this phase is estimated somewhere around 6 months. Once it begins construction, and then we would move right into doing the rest of the park. So it could be a whole year,
Okay,
the end of next year.
And I'd like to acknowledge my teammates at this moment in time for helping me through the process as I have dove into the fire, trying to work my way up. That's it. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah, because I think the next one's Southside Park.
Okay.
Side Park.
Southside Park Phase 1. We are almost at the end of this phase. We're actually, next week, we have a scheduled walk with the contractor for this phase. So everything is pretty much according to plan. The inspections have been done. There was a small delay due to some delivery of some of the equipment. And so but the contractor has actually caught back up. So we're hoping that next week we can finalize the walkthrough and reschedule our ribbon cutting ceremony there. And then we will start focusing in on phase 2 of that project. And the designs, I believe, have already been made. So we're just looking forward to finishing this phase, starting phase 2 of construction with that side of the park.
Linda, do we have a confirmed date on the ribbon cutting? We have a budding Hollywood TV star that won't be here.
If it is gonna be anything, it'd be the week after the fourth, so, I mean, so it would be the following week. Understand that even though there's a walkthrough, the walkthrough is a final, but there may be some other things that punch list. So we want to make sure that we get through that inspection first to make sure that everything is done, and then we'll make that decision. The phase 2 goes right into construction. It is a design phase.
Phase 2 has been the whole park has been master planned. Phase 2 would be the actual design and permitting of those next features within the master plan. And we're going to talk about that. It's one of our breakout topics that we'll talk about at the end here. Speaking of breakout topics, you're going to be hearing about Pigeon Point Playground here in just a minute. And I think that presentation will speak for itself. The first South Carolina Volunteer Park, it's been yes, sir.
Go back to the south side for just a second. The basketball court, Neil and I went by there last
Mhm.
week and talked to, I think he was a worker, that implied, and from what we could observe, that the basketball court is almost completed. When we do the ribbon cutting, are we also going to be celebrating the
No.
basketball court as part of that combined thing, or is that a separate thing that the county is doing, or do you know?
We're waiting to hear back on a completion date from the county on their project. We have been coordinating to make sure they are all invited, and if the timing works out and we can do it all at once, that would be fine.
I'm
The-
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just got to follow up. But, so the reason I asked that is because the county has been very supportive of the basketball court, and I want to make sure that we in some way officially recognize them for that part of it, so.
Absolutely, and I don't know what their ultimate plans are. We have been communicating with them, though, with them being so far apart as far as parking, walking distance. I don't know if they will want to have a separate ceremony, maybe immediately to follow ours or before ours, but we'll coordinate with the county.
I unofficially spoke with someone from the county, and they're talking January for their ribbon cutting.
Is that the same guy we saw that day?
No, it was someone else who had contacted me about wanting to know about Southside, and I said it definitely it'll be before the end of the year, and they said ours won't be until probably January, and they never did give a date or anything, and that's a very unofficial conversation, though.
Yeah, I'm not too overly concerned about the data as I am just for the opportunity to recognize that they supported making
Yeah.
the basketball court happen.
Strong.
Any other questions about Southside Park Phase 1? Right. The first South Carolina Volunteer Park has been a lot of work. I want to thank Scott for kind of taking the lead from our office with the team on that so that I could focus on some of these other projects before Raul started. But the team that's been working on this project are stakeholders with amazing backgrounds. I don't have all their names here in front of me right now, but they've worked together to prepare a scope of work for a master planning design build for this park, and that is with staff now. And we're working to incorporate that into an RFQ that will go out for bid, hopefully sometime this month. And then looking to award that first of the year and get that ball rolling.
Can I make a brief comment on that?
Absolutely, sir.
I too want to thank staff and the stakeholders, for the support. We have been making progress. I think, we've had 4 meetings. We've divided ourselves into, I think, we're calling it a core group just to try to, get some ideas that we could share with the larger stakeholders. And that next meeting will take place on the 16th of January with all the stakeholders. And I think after that meeting, we'll probably be able to say some things more concrete about the way ahead.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
If I could just clarify one item, the RFQ, RFP will go out after our stakeholders have reviewed it. And so it likely will not go out in December. We will provide a final draft to them in December for their review and comment. And then we'll incorporate any of those necessary changes as a result of their review and likely issue that in January.
Thanks.
Southside Park Phase 2 is going to be one of our breakout discussions at the end, so we'll jump into that. Then you'll notice all the information is blank there because we haven't started anything. Carnegie Library improvements.
As a background, we know that this project was bid out 3 times previously, and we were unable to find a suitable contractor. We have, however, found a suitable contractor that can do the work. And so we have also met with Metters, the city's architectural conservation group that we work with out of Charleston. And so she's had conversations, Betty Prime from the group has had conversations with the contractor. We've met on site. He was able to actually find a match for the clay tiles for the roof. We currently have a proposal for that. Jay's working on the contract, so we have all the numbers for that. Jay's working on the contract so we can get that going, hopefully middle of December. And so this morning, Linda and I met with the contractor as a match for the tiles was sent from the company, I believe it was in New Hampshire. And lo and behold, it was a perfect match. We were all really taken back and surprised because the sample that was sent was actually categorized by this company because the tiles come from Germany. So we're hoping to move forward with that quickly and then come January timeframe to get that project going and get that roof replaced. They will also do some repairs to the dormers that need to be repaired to stop the leak in that situation.
What about the interior repairs?
The interior is a second phase to the project. Linda, since you've been handling that, do you want to address that?
We will go out for bids on the interior and try to coordinate it simultaneously as the roof is being finished, then we'll start on the interior. It doesn't make sense to do it until it's weatherproof. So that's the plan.
Any other questions?
Good.
Oh, this is you too. 500 Carteret Street window replacement.
The 500 Carteret window replacement. We have a contractor who has provided us a bid for the work. However, in the last 3 weeks, now we've seen another change in price for the window package. So we are awaiting a second bid from a second manufacturer of the windows, and we are hopeful to have that bid. We were supposed to have those numbers on Friday, but we're hopeful to have it this coming week so that once again, Jay can package that contract together and send it out, and we can get this project started beginning of the year. Hopefully have that done rather quickly, as it's not a large project for them to do.
Comments, questions? Yeah.
Up here for a second.
Go back.
Very sensitive computer.
Yep.
Linda, do you want to give the update on the Arsenal wall repairs, kind of where we've been?
So on the Arsenal walls, we have had we've had an assessment of wall, several years ago or within the last 5 years. That it was broken down into 2 phases. That entire project was, well more than what we wanted to. It was well over $600,000 at the time. We wanted to break it down into phases. So the consultant, with Metters has begun the split up, and she's doing the construction documents for 2 phases, so that we can kind of get a cost estimate, at today's time. So we can move forward and hopefully bring that to y'all in strategic planning, and with the capital projects.
Is it just to replaster the walls and paint them, or?
It's not that simple, but, we wish it was. But there's some treatment that has to be done. There's some repairs to the stucco. It's the crinolines at the top of some of the, and then the outside. But we're restoring a lot of the, broken underneath too, so. But there's a couple of things that has to be done.
Is the color going to be kept the same or are they going to change it?
The color is going to stay the same as what it is on the crinolines currently. When we did the roof projects where we replaced the roofs, we got approval for a type of, paint that is breathable and won't hurt the, historic structure. And if you'll notice at the short walls on the courtyard, at the very top of those, when we did the, roofs on the, visitor center and the offices on the other side, those crinolines were actually done, painted with the approved paint. So if you look at it, that's the color it's going to be. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter, than what the current is, and it doesn't bleed. You're not going to have the bleeding that you have had in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Council, the marina fuel tank replacement, as you all know, had a lot of things go on with the marina the past 6 months or so. So that's kind of been placed on hold pending all of those discussions. The committee that council approved to form to look at the marina lease, and also the waterfront park study. The downtown point drainage projects, I'm not going to break them all down into individual projects here because we're going to talk about it a little more if council has questions afterwards. But the Charles Craven Street project, we received a new grant award that was accepted at the last council meeting. And that increased the grant amount from approximately $7 million to around $11 million. That's due to the increases that the state is seeing all across South Carolina and the country on these projects from the time of the original award. All of the point downtown projects, stormwater projects are currently completing their permitting and finishing up utility coordination. There's a lot of utility coordination that has to go in because these are much larger pipes, and the Beaufort Jasper water sewer infrastructure in the downtown area is rather old. So we want to make sure we go in, we do it, dig once, get everything set up the way it needs to be, and don't have to do that again, or they don't have to come back and do anything afterwards. But those projects are still moving along with the anticipation of bidding them out for construction in January of this year. Or, I'm sorry, January of 2025. Port Republic's another one of those. King Street, as you all know, we rescoped it, so the savings of taking the pump station and generator housing out of the project will hopefully cover the cost of the Port Republic project. So we're waiting to see what those bids come back. We may have to punt on Port Republic if the bids come in too high, but we have 100% designed, permitted, ready to go project that we could still move forward on with another grant cycle if that were to be the case. The reason for the timelines on these is all of these stormwater projects in the downtown Point area are funded through passed down ARPA money. So it's ARPA funds that came from the federal government to the state, and then the state, either through the Rural Infrastructure Authority or the Office of Resiliency, passed that funding along to us as subrecipients. So it still has that December 2026 hard deadline for all the projects to be completed.
You don't expect a delay from contractors or anything, do you? I mean, when you consider weather and what they
Yeah.
find when they start digging and,
The goal, according to the engineers, they still believe we're on track, but that's project management, that's construction. There's always things that come up. The way these schedules are built, the state funding, they want us to be complete with these projects in June of 2026. So if we were to go over us or any other project in the state, there is some wiggle room, but the goal is to not have to use that unless we absolutely have to. The Pigeon Point drainage study, I don't really have anything to update you on other than we have received the grant award from emergency management, and we'll be scoping that RFQ to go out. It just has not been a priority the past 2 months because of all these other projects that do have these hard deadlines for December 31st. So as soon as we get through December and January, we'll sit down, we'll scope this and put that out for bid for engineering services to do that study. Battery Shores paving, this is a project that staff initially recognized as a priority when we realized we would have some potential ARPA funding left over that needed to be spent, that we reallocated from, excuse me, Calhoun Street and some other areas. We entered into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding or Intergovernmental Agreement with the county last week or 2 weeks ago to utilize their ongoing paving contract to try to save us some money and we not have to pay those mobilization costs on our own. And they plan to do the paving sometime within the next 60 to 90 days at the latest. They wanted to get it done before the end of the year, but that's a lot to get done before December 31st with all the holidays. But they're supposed to give us at least 3 weeks notice. And once they give that notice to the county that they intend to proceed on a start date, we will notify the citizens in that area. And this is to pave all of the roads in Battery Shores that are city maintained.
are they gonna stripe them at all? Is that part of the,
No, there's no existing striping. So that's something that could be looked at afterwards, but this is putting back what's already there in a much better condition. The Depot Road, Spanish Moss Trail Extension, again, this is a pass-through grant through CDBG to the county. It is a county-run project, and the funding just comes to the city and is handed off to the county. Our last meeting with the county a few weeks ago, they let us know that they are still in the easement or right-of-way acquisition process. They're going to court on that. I believe they were doing interrogatories on the easement acquisitions in court. So I don't have a timeline on when that would proceed, but we'll update you when we have something.
How many properties are holding it up?
It was originally 3. I believe it's just 2 now,
Okay,
but I'd have to check.
Okay,
I know,
that's
I
fine.
know it's 2.
okay.
It may be more than that. The North Street sidewalk extension, if you've been out there lately, that project is done, other than striping. Nate's crews are just waiting on the weather to be right to complete that striping. But the paving is all done. Pigeon Point Boat Landing, we have a proposal to discuss with you tonight. I'm not going to go into any conversation on this right now because that'll be a big part of our discussion later on. The Henry C. Chambers Park relieving platform, piling engineering, same situation as the landing. We're going to talk about that here at the end. Calhoun Street, it's just a streetscape project. It is currently postponed. There was no way that we could complete be under contract for construction before the end of the year. And we had ARPA funding matching the CDBG grant. So right now, we are still working through right-of-way acquisitions on 3 properties there. We just completed the appraisal process, and that's just been on hold until we could get through some of these other projects. But the plan would be to go ahead and finish out the permitting. The design is done, and that way, if the funding comes available, we revisit this in January at the strategic planning work session. You say, yes, as council, this is still a priority project. We're still ready to proceed. Duke Street, streetscape and drainage. This project is out to bid for construction right now. The engineering team is still finishing up the permitting and the utility coordination on it, but the project is out to bid. If we get the bids before the end of the year that are acceptable within budget, we would anticipate starting the construction in the first half of 2025.
Quick comment on that one, JJ.
Sure.
I was looking at this earlier, and I don't think that in the attachments, there's a description of what Phase A and Phase B is. And just for sake of transparency, it might be good to add that in there. So if somebody that's not familiar with this project is looking at it, they can understand what the difference is of Phase A and Phase B.
Okay. We will, I will make sure to get that added. I apologize. Thought. Oh, we do have that
Oh, where's that at?
on here. This is the Duke Street Council briefing from,
Past council meeting.
yeah, from several months
Can you
ago.
show me where you just clicked on that?
Yes,
'Cause
sir,
I
I
was looking
can.
at 3 different attachments and
So you have in the attachments, you have a picture, you have a slideshow.
oh, it's in the slideshow.
Yes, yep. So
Okay, got it.
click on the slideshow. It takes it just a minute to load, but you do have the slideshows in
Okay.
here with those documents.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that one wasn't loading for me, so
Yeah.
that's why. But thank you.
Yes, sir. I know we skipped through some projects here. Allison Road is currently finishing up. Raul, do you want to give a quick update on that? This was Raul's first jump into on-the-ground project management with the city, and he's got it back on track. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. We are 95% complete with the Allison Road project. We're down to final inspections. The sidewalks will be poured hopefully in a couple of weeks. Again, it's a utility issue with having the utilities come out and do their work with the electrical and moving, taking the lines down off the existing, removing the posts, and then we'll be pouring the sidewalk, and pretty much we should be wrapped up on time in December by the end date of that project. So,
Were you on budget on that?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Going back to our stormwater projects, the Battery Shores Drainage Project. This is also known as the Otter Circle Drainage Project. This has to do with when you first go into Battery Shores, you take a right onto Otter Circle. There is a retention pond right there that goes out with an outfall between two houses. This project is to clean up that retention pond and to extend the outfall out further into the marsh so that the water doesn't go out, hit, and then come back in. That project has been designed. We are still awaiting the final permitting, but the engineers are working through that, and we do have that out to bid already with the goal of going into construction first of the year.
Just an update on that. As of today, we've actually gotten two contractors to call back and ask some questions. They've shown some interest, and we have finally gotten the permit from the Army Corps of Engineer, because they thought that depending on how the that catch basin, the lagoon, actually the retention pond sat within their guidelines, whether we had to go any further with permitting or not. But after 3 weeks of trying to get a decision, we finally got one. It does not. So that's been approved. And as a matter of fact, I think I just signed the permit the other day and sent it back. So we're good on that portion of the project.
I do not want to print. And then the other project that we still have is identified as a priority project, but currently on hold is the Parallel Road project. So we'll be revisiting that in the January strategic planning work session for council to determine if that is still a budgeting and capital project priority. Council, that is our project management system. That is a brief overview of all of the existing capital projects in the city. We do have one that is ongoing that is not in the system because it's been managed at the fire department, primarily just because I didn't have the bandwidth to take another active project on, and that is the Fire Station 1 expansion to include county EMS unit. That's a joint project. Chief Ogden is here if council has any questions about that. I will be bringing more information about that to council first of the year as we talk to the county and determine exactly how that project would be broken up. But we do have a preliminary design.
What's the county's skin in the game, so to speak?
Chief, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but the county has paid for the design at this point, and right now we're providing the land and the station. So now we're looking at what would the breakdown for construction be? What is a fair, reasonable approach to that?
Will
Mr.
they be
Mayor,
Got
leasing,
anything else you want to add, Chief?
Chief, will they be releasing this from us, or just, it's a sort of a in-kind thing or something?
Right now, we're just in the feasibility study phase. So the county funded the feasibility study. The county contracted with an architect design team. They came in, did a feasibility study, conceptual design, and cost estimate. That was kind of phase one. And that's where we are today. We haven't, presented the numbers to the county or the city officially yet. We did get a positive feasibility study, say, yes, this is feasible to do. So that was step one. Now, once we, look at funding and other options and start moving forward, we'll enter into a construction agreement with the county. And then we'll start to determine, the percentage of who is covering what cost of the project. And then the final stage will be an occupancy agreement where we'll work out the details of EMS occupying our building and how those logistics work out.
Thank you.
Yes.
council, as a reminder, we'll have some further discussion and presentations on the Downtown Point stormwater projects, Pigeon Point Playground, Carnegie Library, 500 Carteret, Washington Street Park, Southside Park Phase 2, Pigeon Point Landing, and Waterfront Park Engineering Services. But do you have any questions about these other projects, any of the Battery Shores projects or the completed projects before we move on?
You didn't mention Port Republic.
Yes, sir. Sorry, that was, I pigeonholed that into the Downtown Point stormwater
Okay, that's fine.
projects. Yes, sir.
Yep.
I don't know. I know I had several people reach out to me from the Battery Shores neighborhood. I don't have anything else to present. I don't know if they would want to speak or if you want to open it to the public before we jump in.
Yes, ma'am. You want to come forward? And please give us your name and address. It's just for the record.
As a resident in Battery Shores, I first want to thank you all for coming out to talk with us a couple months ago. It's nice to see your faces. I have basically one question, and that is the two projects that are being set up for our neighborhood. We are thrilled about getting our roads finally paved and the work on the drainage system. We've had patches on the roads in the past, and then more construction trucks come in and the patches don't last. So my question is here, it sounds like we're going to have the paving done soon. And it sounds like the drainage is going to be a little bit after that. When they work on the drainage, is that going to, okay, that's what I want.
Jay, no, it's not going to affect the road or paving.
Okay, all right. And then my last thing is thank you.
Can I get your name and address again, just for the record, because our clerk?
Susan Davidson, 1065 Otter Circle.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none. JJ, you're up again.
Council, I gave you kind of the big picture overview of where we're at on the Downtown Point stormwater projects. King Street's been rescoped to not include a pump station or any above ground structures, but utilizing the existing outfall just being modified, and then a new collection and conveyance system. The goal is to get that and all of our other stormwater projects, King Street, Port Republic, and Charles Craven out to bid in January and get them under construction by March of this year, of 2025. We did have the additional grant funding from SCORE for the Charles Craven project, and the goal is to cover the costs of the Port Republic project with the savings from the redesign of the King Street project. We did receive our OCRM permit for King Street this week, which I think y'all know was kind of a momentous feat for us, considering all the rescoping and back and forth with that. We expect the Army Corps of Engineer permit to follow shortly thereafter. And we followed up with both agencies on the other two projects, and they said everything's in. It's in their queue. They're getting to them as quick as they can. The big thing has been the utility coordination with Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority. We've had several meetings lately, and the engineers are going back and forth with that to make sure that we have a good conflicts approach to this project. And we may be bringing a resolution to council next month that just formalizes an agreement that allows our engineers to do some work on the Beaufort Jasper side and the Beaufort Jasper side to share information with us as well. It's a standard memorandum of understanding that they use with the Department of Transportation and the county all the time. And we're waiting to see if that's the appropriate path they want to take. But does council have any questions about the stormwater projects downtown or on the point?
Anyone have any questions?
On the Craven Street, how far is that going to be at the intersection? Or does it go all the way down towards the point? And the reason I'm asking, just wondering about the timeline, because
Yep.
is that going to affect the arsenal work or, the big celebration they're having at Tabernacle for their planning, I think.
We've got to sit down and look at the mobilization and how that's going to be broken down. All of the projects will start at their outfalls and work their ways in. So that portion of the construction should not be at least in the first half of 2025. That's going to be later down the road.
Okay,
But
that's
that
what,
that coordination will involve the construction teams, our teams, all hands, meeting with downtown and Public Works and DOT to figure out exactly how we want to do the traffic control and that approach. That's going to be a full-time
Yeah.
job, just coordinating those three projects.
Especially the Port Republic Carteret, because it's coming right off of Woods Bridge.
Yes,
So-
sir.
I'm a little concerned with the Arsenal and the Carnegie Building, that it's gonna overlap with this and cause some problems.
I think there was a photo of where the work was gonna take place on here. Yep.
Technology Grand. There we go.
Yeah, that first one.
Can council see that? I know it's kind of small. That didn't work. I'm making it worse.
One block of Craven
Yep.
and the West Street.
Any questions about the Downtown Point stormwater projects?
Anyone? No.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Julie Mayer I pronounced your last name correct, didn't I? Oh, no, did I pronounce it wrong? Meyer, Julie Meyer with Cunningham Recreation. They are on the Omni contracting services, so we do not have to go out to bid. All that process has been done at the state level. And Julie has worked with our staff in the past. She's been great working with Nate on these proposals. And I'm going to pull those up and let her go over the proposal. Yep. Here, if you want.
I just want to say thank you for having me. You'll have a lot of exciting things happening. So this has been a long project of design and kind of talking about what the city wants to kind of honor what you currently have in the park and then kind of elevate it for years to come and have the materials and the thoughtfulness of a design. So we took what you currently have, and in this proposal, it's a turnkey. So it's, we're going to remove the current equipment. We're going to take that out. We're going to reinstall the new equipment to safety standards. That includes surfacing, drainage in the 5 to 12 area. I do want to kind of start in TV if I can. How do I do that? Thank you. So this design I kind of wanted to explain is a national demonstration site. So I rep a company called Game Time, and everything is manufactured in northern Alabama. But when we do our designs, we work with a team of scholars to make them a national demonstration site, because this is a national demonstration site on inclusive play, which allows children of all abilities to play alongside each other. So what we did with the budget is we really had to make some decisions, because you have four areas of play, and we condensed that down to 3. So it leaves an open area in the back. Sorry, this is touchy. Okay, so we can see the 4 areas here. This is the new proposed equipment. So to the top left, that's our new 5 to 12 area, and it's going to have a surfacing called poured in place rubber. So we're going to take out the current engineered wood fiber chips. We're going to excavate down, and we're going to add in drainage. We're going to add in crushed stone. And on top of that is the safety surfacing. So this is all configured with how high the playground is for critical fall heights for safety for children. This play structure goes up to 8 feet. It starts at a ramped elevated to a 1-foot deck, which allows children with mobility devices to go up onto the playground, onto the unit. There is sensory play, there's something for everybody, and that's part of the national demonstration site. So that's gonna be the 5 to 12. And then we came back with the city and we had to make some decisions with this budget because surfacing is very expensive. So we just thought with the 2 to 5 area, which is at the bottom to the left, that we would keep that, the engineered wood fiber, but we needed an accessible path. So we came back and added poured in place rubber, which you see in the blue, which is the accessible path to the unit. So children can, all right, and I'll do it in the rendering. I can see that's a little confusing. Let's see here. Can I make it larger? Thank you, JJ. And please stop me if you have any questions along the way.
Want this one larger?
The rendering. larger,
Oh, the
please.
renderings?
Mhm.
I've got all of the renderings are right here. You just select which one
Okay, perfect.
you need. Which one were you?
Let's do this one.
This one?
Okay, so we kept the nature theme, but we wanted to have some imaginative play. There's a lot of natural shade that's already in this park. So we didn't think that we really needed a lot of integrated shade. So what we did is we did apple tree toppers that you see. Now this is rendered in a color that is called Forester. The material is not made out of wood. It's going to be a material that's going to last up to 20 years. And for a maintenance standpoint, it's going to be able to withhold the stand up 20 years. So we've also got a lot of play. There's, you can see there's monkey bars, there's a slide that's a curly slide that goes up to 8 feet. We have some natural wood climbers over here to the left, and then a crawl through log, excuse me. So that kind of all incorporates the nature. So this is the 5 to 12. Do you want me to stop with questions or keep going? Keep going. Any questions, council?
That was 5 to 12, you said?
Yes, and, oh,
Okay.
and one good thing to point out is the current curbs that are at the playground are plastic play curbs. With the poured in place rubber, we spend a lot of money on that. That has to adhere to something, and this is ground level. So we're not stepping up to a playground, we're rolling right on or stepping on. So it's a concrete curb that will go around to the surfacing. So we're replacing that as well in the 5 to 12. In the 2 to 5, it's going to be a little bit different story here. Let me get over to that. Okay. Okay, here's the 2 to 5. So this is the accessible path that I was talking about. So it's going to start at the concrete and you'll see the poured in place accessible path to all of the play units. And it's a turn down. So what happens is there will be a turn down of the surfacing, and then engineered wood fiber will come up to that safety surface level. The current the current plastic play curbs will stay in place on this play area. We're keeping the wrinkle wall that's currently there. We're changing the swings. We've added an expression swing, which is a mommy and me swing. You see the apple tree toppers as well. We've got a slide. We've got a rock climbing apparatus that goes up to the deck here. So this is the 2 to 5 area.
So I guess my question would be, help me understand, because with the renderings here and the renderings that we have that you previously had up, I can see those things. I can see the apple tree toppers, I can see the rock climber. But when I'm looking at the breakdown and these itemized expenses, I don't see a lot of those things. I don't see the river rock climber, I don't see the tree toppers, I don't see the frog slide or the therapeutic rings. So what is the difference in the renderings and the itemized expenses?
When you look at the quote, it'll say like the 2 to 5 and that the unit is kind of all there together. Yes, on the quote, if you look at the 2 to 5, which if I can, should I pull the quote up here? Okay. Okay, so if you go to the quote and let's see, it's page 8 in your packet and it's page 1 of 4 on the Pigeon Point on our quote. The 5 to 12 area, we have the first line item is the modular powerscaped ramp unit. That's the 5 to 12. And that's got everything in the unit and enclosed in that. So we can break that out for you more if you would like to see that, but that's the whole unit with all of those items on it. Then we have like the log crawl through, that's one item. The reason why it's priced that way is because it's one price for the unit, if you see next to the price. And then the log crawl through is one price. The leaf, they're all, we look at those as separate entities, if you will.
Okay, and I guess the same would be for the 2 to 5 area, like your modular
Escape unit
PowerScape 2 to 5 unit covers all of the things that maybe don't show up in the
That-
rendering.
That do
as
show
an
up in the rendering.
That show up in the rendering, but not in
Correct.
itemized. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
And I'm happy to break them out if you want to see like all the components individually that are on each unit, but they wouldn't be priced because we price it as a whole on a unit.
On the wood chips, I guess, on the 2 to 5 area, that's going to have to be maintained by us, obviously.
Correct. Moving forward, it will be, yeah. And there won't be any drainage on the 2 to 5 either because you'll have natural drainage through the wood chips that are there. And we will take part of our removal and disposal. We'll be taking those current wood chips out, getting rid of them. And then we will put in more that will meet to the standards of the playground safety. So those will all be new wood chips.
What's the depth of that for the wood chips?
It depends on the
Height.
height, the critical fall height of the actual unit. Different heights require different depths, but around, you can always think 6 to 7 inches.
Gotcha.
I mean, feet, sorry.
Well, the wood chips, it's kind of crazy question. The wood chips, are they going to be going a little above the actual side, the curbing, or go below it, or?
Yeah, when you first install a playground, if you ever see with the wood chips, it's gonna look really fluffy and way higher than the curbs because it's not compacted down. And the difference between like going to Lowe's and getting wood chips and having engineered wood playground safety chips is that they're gonna integrate in and kind of make a surfacing. They don't have any chemicals on them. When it rains and when we walk on them, they naturally compact. But then again, on the flip side of that, when we have weather, they're going to wash away and we've got to maintain it.
And so when they compact down, is it going to leave a little space there for like a trip hazard coming out
So
of it?
Great question. The way that it's designed for the path that you see, it's going to be a turn down. So we're going to have the critical height and then it's going to turn down and then the wood chips are going to kind of come. So the port in place goes like this and the wood chips come up to this. So it's going to should be equal.
Okay.
So, I was envisioning wood chips that were not real wood chips. Are these like real wood chips?
Well, they're engineered wood chips,
Okay.
but yes,
Yeah,
they
they're
are
engineered.
engineered to look like wood chips that you would see like mulch.
That has some give to them.
It does, yes. Okay, so this is the 2 to 5 area. We're keeping the swings. One great point that we got feedback on is to keep all the 2 to 5 together in one area to not, so that's why you see some 2 to 5 swings here in this area. And then the part that we combined, so part of the quote does have us to remove everything, and we have 2 freestanding sections currently. We're removing one of them. We're going to leave that open. That could be whatever you guys see best fit for that area. But the other one we're combining with freestanding. So let's dive into that. Let's see. Okay, we have a freestanding slide. We've got swings. We're moving the music over here that is already currently at the playground. It's in great condition, just like the wrinkle wall. So we're keeping, oh, thank you, JJ. And then we've got the spinner that you see in the back behind the swings. And this is gonna have the original footprint, the original play curbs and new. So we'll do the same thing here with the removal and disposal. We'll remove all the old wood chips. We'll install the playground equipment, and then we will lastly install the surfacing, which is the engineered wood fiber chips. Everything is customizable. Colors we can change. We can, do all that. So anything you want to talk about that is open. Okay.
One thing, council, based on some public feedback, I want to emphasize, we're not doing anything outside of the existing playground footprint. Not doing anything with any trees. We're not doing anything with any of the pathways, the bricks, the pavers. These renderings are just to show what the equipment would look like within the playground area. So I know there's not a lot of trees in there, but that's That's because we wanted to feature the playground equipment. We're not touching anything outside of the existing playground footprint here.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments?
I guess just a real point of clarification for the rubber curbs. So it looked like on page 2 of 4, the rubber curbs were going to be reused, but it says in the 5 to 12 area only. And then in the rendering, it shows reusing of the rubber curbs in the 2 to 5 area? Or is it reusing the curbs in the 2 to 5 area and moving them to the 5 to 12?
Okay, so the 5 to 12 area, the largest area with the most play is going to have all the current equipment removed. Everything is going to be, it's going to be the same physical footprint, but we're adding new curbs, we're excavating down, we're draining, we're adding drainage, and we're going to have concrete curbs that go around to the new playground with the poured in place rubber. In the 2 to 5 area, you're going to have the same rubber curbs that you currently have, but we will be adding like accessibility ramps with the poured in place that's going in the accessible route.
Okay.
If that makes sense, let me know.
Yes, that makes sense, because I guess it says price includes R&D of existing rubber curbs. I guess that's removing and disposal. Is that what that is? Removing and disposal of the rubber curbs, and that's only in the 5 to 12 because you're reusing them in the 2 to 5.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
you're following me. Yes, awesome. I know it's a lot of, it's a lot. The
Yep.
fit and finish is so important when you spend this much money on a playground. The way that we drain it, the way that we set it is almost just as important as the equipment selection for the longevity of a project like this. So there's a lot of details here.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a question, not necessarily for you, because I think you were focusing on the playground equipment, but this is for the park in general. One of the feedback that I got during a visit to the park with some of the neighbors a couple of months ago, or a month or so ago, you can imagine what was going on. There was some concern from more than one citizen about the park in general, and that the park and there were plants around trees and flowers and so forth and so on, that the person thought that the park and, outside of just the playground equipment, that the park itself had lost the things that, the plants that made it beautiful. Are there plans to beautify the park in general?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So back a little bit ago, we started working with the PTAC committee about trying to revitalize Pigeon Point Playground and the park area itself with some new plantings and beds. PTAC itself has been through some changes. We're starting to get some of that back up and running. We've started with some smaller parks first, just to try to get a feel and let them feel how we want to try to see, hey, what can we do to make these parks look better? But the plan is to work with PTAC as well to get back into Pigeon Point and try to revitalize some of the flower beds as well as some of the bushes and the other areas, not just around the playground.
Thanks, Steve.
The rubber surface under there, is that similar to what's over in Southside being put in? Okay, that's great material. I walked on it and see.
Like I said, we've worked with Julian Cunningham on several projects, and we enjoyed this process of working with them on this as well. Some of the feedback that we've gotten consistently in the survey for this park has been, keep wood where we can. For maintenance, from a risk management standpoint, it's difficult to do. We've tried to respect that with the natural colors and designs that you see here, something that will fit in with the park and not stand out, be gaudy. Adding inclusivity has been a big thing we've heard. As you see, we've tried to do that as consistently as we can. So we've tried to incorporate both the formal survey feedback as well as speaking to individuals in the park, out in the community, throughout this process.
If there's no other comments, I'm going to open it up to the public. Does anyone wish to speak to what you've seen? Okay, Ms. Merrill? Y'all could form a line if you wanted to. And give us your name and address for the record.
Gentlemen, my name is Kay Merrill. I live at 813 Augusta in beautiful Pigeon Point Park, almost. I'm sort of overwhelmed, frankly. I saw what was online. And I actually wrote a speech, but I'm not gonna read this speech. What I am gonna say is that, number one, I'm sorry we being the neighborhood, weren't at the table in the early part of these discussions. Our relationship with this park and this playground goes back decades, literally. There are people in this room, I can see one behind me, and others who have wielded shovels and rakes and wallets over the years on behalf of this playground and this park. Did you know, for example, that our neighborhood paid for the original brick posts, columns that are at the beginning of the park, the entrance to the park on Pigeon Point Road, and the first fence along Pigeon Point Road? We paid for that. This park is our neighborhood. There are residences on all sides. It's not, and I don't want to make a comparison necessarily, but it's not like the big piece of property down at Southside Park, which is lots of big open space. What we have is a beautiful tree canopy. We have gorgeous plantings that Nate says you're working on it, but they've been working on it for a long time and it looks great and they do a great job. It's part of who we are. And while we love having the playground there, we need to find a balance, I think. I don't want to be a Grinch about this. I love playgrounds for kids and my grandchildren have, and great grandchild played on that playground. But somehow it seems to me that what we're seeing in this plan is sort of overwhelming. There are, and I understand that the colors could change, and certainly we don't want a carnival there. If you drive past that park, it just blends in. And that's what we'd like to see. We'd like to see it continue to attract people from all over, as it does, literally all over. Nothing makes me happier than to see a grandparent sitting on one of the swings, reading to a child, or an off-duty military dad waiting at the bottom of a slide to catch a child. These are the things that we love about that park. But we really don't want a carnival, and we don't want carnival colors. Neighbors here live within a stone's throw. And we need to find that balance. And again, I'm sorry we weren't at the table earlier, but we're here now. And I think we do need to find a balance. Let's don't mess this up, please. Keep us residents who live right there in mind when you go forward with this plan. And we are obviously willing to sit down and talk with you about what we'd like to see. The survey came out very late. I don't know whether it was even considered in the planning process, but I'm sort of unhappy. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Graham Carr. I live in 2403 Pigeon Point Road, where I have lived since 1974. I look at this morning, I and my wife Susie rode our bicycles down to the Pigeon Point Park, which we quite often do, and just walked around. And if you look at that picture, it doesn't tell the whole story. If you look at that brick park pathway there, you will see the names of people embedded in the bricks of people who paid money to improve the park, which happened probably 40 or 40 years ago. So that there's no pictures of the trees there. It is an absolutely magnificent park as it stands. If you look at the equipment that exists there now, which I did this morning, it is in good shape. It needs, there are some areas of it, the horse heads and the things like that, need painting, but otherwise it's structurally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Works beautifully. This morning, there was one child there. And basically, and that's important, obviously, it was built for children. But basically, it's beyond that now. When I first went to Pigeon Point, it was derelict. It was grown up in straw and brush. There was an ancient F.J. Fury aeroplane standing in the corner, and there were Quonset buildings there. You obviously remember that, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it was an Italian prisoner of war camp.
Yeah. All I'm saying to you is that we're talking about a great deal of money to repair something that doesn't need repairing. That money, if I can make a point here, could be well used in other projects that you've outlined here. Pigeon Point Park, as it stands, is a beautiful thing. It doesn't need to be messed about with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else standing. Okay, here we go. Good.
Hi, good evening. My name's Kristen Peterson. I live in Pigeon Point at 811 Augusta Place. I'm also also manage the Children's Little Free Library in Pigeon Point Park. And I just wanted to share with you that this well-used resource has been in place since 2017 when our neighborhood installed it and we made the commitment to maintaining it for the community at large, not just our neighbors right there, but everybody who comes there. When I restock every other day, I notice children and their families reading, which is near and dear to my heart because I was a teacher for 32 years and I love to read. And they're reading on the benches and under the trees and on the grass. And I estimate that I replace 20 to 50 or 60 books a week. The books come from donations, neighbors in our community of Pigeon Point, from monies we have raised. And again, out of the goodness of their heart, people bring me books and I go buy books when I need to. After reviewing the plans in the park, I didn't see a location designated for the Little Free Library, which is currently in the central location. And I understand that this is just the playground equipment and I get that, but I just wanted to make a plug for our Little Free Library, which is very active and in good shape. And as a representative of our neighborhood, I'd like to have your assurance that you will continue to find a place for it to be maintained and seating areas that assure that it's well used. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, thanks for hearing me. My name is Stephanie Braswell. I'm at 2200 Wilson Drive. And by this time, this may be a tiny bit redundant, but I'm here. And you're here. I'd like to speak about that storied brick walkway that runs through Pigeon Point Park. And it is our desire that that remain completely intact, that it is not damaged. The equipment has to come in somehow on some heavy equipment, and I'm just a little nervous that I thought I was. Can you hear that? Oh, okay. So just to back up a bit, in 2005, we sold our home on Hilton Head and wanted to make a home in Beaufort, and our real estate agent very wisely brought us down Pigeon Point Road, past the park, and I thought to myself, wow, what a beautiful little gem of a park. I would really enjoy spending time here. So after we moved here, I became involved in different things. I've volunteered here and there. But now I'm getting a little nervous. Before that, before I became involved in things, there was a group of very wonderful and insightful neighbors, as you heard folks speak up, and they created this fundraiser in the form of the engraved bricks. So the profits from that bricks account that was started would only be money used back into the park, not for anything else. Just to explain how it worked very quickly, someone would fill out a little order form for a brick. There were little blocks on it where you could put the names of people you wanted engraved on there. One of the volunteers would go to City Works, pick up the bricks, take them all the way to Walterboro, to the Steedley Monument Company. Once they were finished there, a volunteer would go back to Walterboro and pick up the bricks, take them back to Public Works, and then Public Works would place them in the park, in the walkway. A lot of things had to take place there. Many a parent, grandparent, child, friend, pet, chicken. Chickens are memorialized there, yes. So what I just want to say is that there were many people involved with the evolution, if you want to call it, of this brick walkway. And I just want to be I want you all to be very concerned that in no way is this walkway damaged when the equipment is coming in. And that's.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Anyone else? Hearing none. Nate, you have something you want to say?
Mr. Mayor, Council, just to answer a few questions back to the public. In no regards is Public Works trying to take away the beauty of Pigeon Point Park or the playground itself. This was brought up due to many hazardous conditions that we've experienced over the past 5 years. Most recently, most of the platforms within the wooden structures have been replaced. Many of the side structures that are currently in place have been replaced. Many of the structures that are outside of the 5 to 12 or the 2 to 5 playground area are new because the other structures didn't make it. So it was brought because of the fact that the lifespan of the equipment for the bigger structures is starting to fail. We want to keep everything that's there, the library, the bricks, everything. We want to work with the community as well. And we want to just make this a better place for everyone that's there, especially the members of the community. And I want to make sure that it's safe for the children that go out there as well. And that was what brought most of this about.
Thank you. Ms. Merrill, and then Claudia.
Sorry about that. Let me just back up a little bit and say, we obviously want this to be a safe playground for children. There's no question about that. And Nate's absolutely right. We know that some of that equipment is a little wonky and needs to be replaced. What we're asking is that this stuff fit into our residential community. We're not looking at a big open space. We're looking at a residential community. There are people in this room who live next door to that park. they don't want to have a carnival in their yard. Just keep us in mind, please. It's a lovely neighborhood. We want it to stay that way. We want to attract kids and adults from all over. There are times when there are vans in the park with people from adult daycare programs who come in and sit on those benches and watch the children playing, people whose lives have shrunk, but they come to the park and they watch children play and they watch the things that go on. We have moms who come with their kids and their coffee and enjoy the time in the park. It can be a quiet place. It can be a noisy place, but it's our neighborhood. It's in our backyard. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Council, I didn't come here to speak, but after seeing all this and listening, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in there.
Claudia,
I
could you give us
love
your
it.
name and address first?
Oh, I'm sorry, Claudia Webb. I live in Pigeon Point, 2211 Pigeon Point Road. And like everyone has said, I love the park. And this is impressive. I'm not sure it's what we want. I would rather see the money spent to add equipment for the older children. I've seen, say, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, maybe not 15. But anyway, they're in daycare for the summer because parents don't have anything else to do for them. And they come to the park and there's nothing for them to do. I've seen them climbing on the equipment just out of boredom in the younger play areas. And I would like to see the money spent putting a gaga pit or a foursquare or kickball. We have plenty of room for it. And I think our park could be engaging for older children, not just up to 12. If you could please consider that if it's not too far gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Anyone else? Come on. Okay, well, I guess, JJ, you want to wrap this up?
Council, I will note that this design with these three areas still leaves one open space that we haven't done anything with or don't have a plan to do anything with. So that could be addressed towards older children. Oops. Any other questions for staff?
I do,
Yes,
yeah,
Joe.
real quick. So, Nate, you spoke about the Little Free Library, the bricks. What are the plans for the fence and was there a brick entrance way? Was it pillars or was it just the walkway? Or both?
Both.
Okay, so was there plans for the brick pillars and the fence?
The only aspects of the playground that would be touched would be the actual equipment itself within the mulched boundaries. So none of the outside areas, the fence may have to be removed to bring equipment in. So we don't interfere with the bricks, but it would be put back and everything would be returned back to the same standards that it is currently now. But none of the bricks, the little library, the center area is on the plans to be touched for construction at all. It is only the areas that are currently within the mulch.
Okay, so it sounds like with some of the concerns that were brought up, those would remain as they are and preserved. And there would potentially still be another space that could include something for the older kids down the road. I guess my question would be to the neighbors maybe that spoke, with all of that being out there, are there still concerns with the kind of equipment or the color of the equipment that's coming in? Or are the concerns that were brought up now that we know those are going to be preserved and as they are, or put back if the fence has to be removed, is that satisfactory?
say as far as the
Yeah.
colors are concerned, the more, back to nature colors, the better. Again, we
Mhm.
don't want,
Mhm.
Talking about browns and greens.
Jose, I believe that I can work with Miss Julie and we can do some color renderings before final choice or before we put it before the public.
So, and this was probably mentioned, but I didn't catch it, but given the concern about, that from the neighbors about, sorry, not wanting like a carnival-like situation,
Mm.
how does the proposed footprint of the equipment and so forth compare to the footprint of what's there now?
What you have now is wood, treated wood that, and now what we have is gonna be a metal that's dipped in a plastic that's gonna have a lifespan of 20+ years. So the configuration is the same, it's just different materials, and the rendering is in a Forester palette, color palette. We can take those greens from spring green down to like a muted green. We can, I mean, it's all customizable. We can change the colors. We can take the toppers off if you don't like the apple tree toppers and want to see something more muted. I mean, what we do is all in it within reach. The biggest takeaway from the new playground is that it's going to be accessible for all children, whether they're in a if a child in a wheelchair comes to the playground now, they're not going to be able to access the playground like they will moving forward.
So
That's the biggest part of our design.
the proposed playground,
Correct.
could it just fit within the footprint of what's there now?
Correct. We're not changing any of the parameters. We're, even the way we're gonna come in, Nate and I met on site with the install team. We're gonna come in on the side. We're not even gonna touch the bricks. We're gonna be very mindful and respectful. I mean, we don't know the park as well as these people, but we see the love there and we want to help to honor that.
Two questions I have. One is the current park handicap accessible? Or, yes, I didn't think so. And that's one thing you have to do in a public park.
So currently, all 4 stations are mulched. So children with wheelchair or with lower disabilities would struggle to get to the equipment without help.
And I think we're required now as a public accessibility, you have to have that for, I believe that's, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe we still fall within the guidelines because we have stations that
They
meet
can
other
use?
criterias
Okay.
for handicaps.
Yeah, and I know the treated wood is bad because splinters. There've been a lot of lawsuits for those. And
Oh.
it isn't somewhat tenuous situation, so that's why you want to remove it.
Well, we've also found, so like currently right now where the bird nest is in the current 5 to 12, every weekend we do a playground inspection and it was found that the bird nest, which is the highest point of the playground that's currently installed, was failing. And so we had to block it off and we're gonna have to go and reinforce it. And it's kind of the same thing. We're continually finding something. We'll go in, we'll repair and fix it. And then maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, we'll find something else and we'll have to repair and fix it. And it's just this kind of never ending game that we've continued to play over the past 2 to 3 years.
I've got a question for JJ. At a neighborhood meeting, once we get the colors down, before it's presented to council at a work session or council meeting, could you do it at a neighborhood meeting and let the neighbors see it and kind of get feedback and then let it come to council?
We can, with this particular project, we're kind of working under some time constraints to get under contract.
Okay,
This is all ARPA funded.
okay, oh, okay. Is there a way we can get it, let the neighborhood see it, maybe a special meeting? Let them see it and then
We
bring
can
it to
share it.
council?
Kay's really good about getting the
Yeah.
information out. We can share that.
Okay, I
as
just
we
want them
update.
to,
We would still, again, need to be sign a PO for this before December 31st or seek an alternative
Right.
funding source.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think from what I'm hearing anyway, most of the concerns that were brought up, if we could work with the coloring, have been or could be addressed. It's not too far for that. I have some questions in regards to, I guess it would be the contract back here. One, just pointing out that we're outside of the 30-day window, so some of the prices here, are subject to change. But, there was a receipt of goods, just for clarification for myself. Who would be responsible for the portion under receipt of goods where it talks about receiving, unloading, inspecting, and providing written acceptance of the shipment? Talks about, I guess, Cunningham Recreation, if damages are noted, the receiver must submit a claim to Cunningham Recreation within 15 days. And then the receiver is also responsible for taking inventory of the shipment and reporting any concealed damage or discrepancy in quantities received within 60 days. Who bears the responsibility of that?
Yeah, so our installer that installs the equipment, so there is once the equipment is ordered, it goes into production, and we have a lot of custom nature designs on this unit. So we're at a 12-week lead time right now. So we watch that equipment as it comes out, and right when it's getting ready to ship, our installers meet on site and they handle that. So we have two install teams. We have one install team that does all the removal and disposal. And then and they also install the equipment. Then we have a special team that comes in and does the port in place rubber. And that's a separate team. So we have two teams that finish the job. But we receive all of our installers, the equipment. The 30 days, we have price holding for the end of December.
Okay, got it.
Any other comments, questions? So JJ, you want to try to work with? the-
We'll work with Nate
Neighborhood.
and Julie and
Okay.
get some new renderings
Okay,
and get those to the community.
Good.
And I'll talk to Kay and company and see if we can get some specific ideas about any potential modifications, work with Julie on that, where she talked about possibly taking some of the tree decorations off. We'll work on that.
okay,
Okay?
appreciate that. Is that acceptable, okay? I mean, okay.
All right.
We want to get in the way.
No, we just wanted to make sure that y'all are comfortable with what's going on.
Julie, thank you for being here tonight.
You-
Very much.
All right. Council, the next two projects that we have listed that we could go into more of a deep dive on were the Carnegie Library repairs and the 500 Carteret Street repairs. I know Raul and Linda kind of did a good rundown of that earlier. Do y'all have any specific questions for them on those projects? Where we're at, we'll continue to update council in our monthly reports as we get more information.
Just glad we found somebody for the roof, because I know they're having leaking problems
Yeah.
with that, so.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do a separate bid for the interior,
The
correct?
interior would be separate, yes, sir. With the goal of starting that towards the end of the roof installation.
Any other questions, comments on Carnegie? Okay,
The next project was the First South Carolina Volunteers Park. Put this in here, just, I didn't know if anybody that's a part of that committee wanted to speak on that or dive down into that anymore. I know we're going to have a lot more to bring back to the public in January and February. But I just wanted to leave that in here if we wanted to discuss anything else. I know Councilman Mitchell, you've been very involved in that process.
Yeah, I said earlier, I have nothing in addition to say.
Gotcha.
I think after the meeting on the 16th, we'll have more that we could share.
And then the Washington Street Park Phase 1, again, Raul and Linda did a good job of kind of breaking down where we are on that at this point. Do y'all have any questions about that contract, or really the holdup's been going through the CDBG process, getting the commerce approvals. And then, we've continued to meet with the committee members, Dan Blackman and Fred Washington, for their continuous input on that process. And it's continued to be good conversations.
Was a review by the Commerce over CDBG funding because it was only one bid, or is it because of something else?
They have to approve every contract before they authorize you to enter into it with CDBG funds.
Okay.
So it's just a standard review. And right now, with all these various ARPA projects going on across the state, everyone's behind in reviewing processes.
Okay.
Plus, it's the holidays. Well, that brings us to Southside Park Phase 2. And council, this is, again, a park that has been master planned prior to my joining the city. Phase 1 focused on the pavilion and the playground area. Phase 2 is pretty much everything else on the Southside Park property. I was not a part of those conversations, but Linda's been a part of that process from the very beginning, so she can answer any specific questions. But really what we wanted to talk about with you tonight was just let you know we're at that point where we need to start working with the design team, the engineers, and the landscape architects to start looking into what portions of Phase 2 that we want to take on right away, how we want to prioritize those, being the big dog park, the little dog park. There's a community building. There's some walkways along the marsh, along the back. How do we want to prioritize that, and then start moving towards actual design and permitting? In your packet, you have what I've labeled the kind of the worst case scenario from Davis and Floyd. The pricing for the design, permitting, construction documents, bid and procurement process, and construction administration, inspections. Those costs, depending on which, how we prioritize and what we move forward with, ranged anywhere from $490,000 to $542,000. And I'll remind you, that's not just the design portion. It's broken out in here by task. That takes us all the way through construction. The actual design portion is approximately $200,000 in both levels of that process. It just depends on how extensive the permitting is and how far we decide we want to go. Does council have any questions about what Phase 2 or what all Phase 2 may include? The master planning documents are in the packet for you. And does council have any concerns with us going ahead and starting those conversations with Davis and Floyd, moving forward with determining those prioritizations?
I've got something, a couple of things on the dog park. I just want to make sure the artificial turf is not going to be part of it. Okay. Okay, make sure that's one good thing. Okay, and I go over there and just talk to the people all the time in the dog park. I don't have a dog, but just see, concerns and everything. Most of it's being addressed with the tables, things like that. The one thing they've asked if we would consider where the entranceway is it possible that you have the entrance extended where there's an entrance for the small dogs and a different one for the big dogs? Because sometimes they get into the same entranceway and it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, those are the types of things that would be finalized during the design stage with public input. On the master plan, there is a large dog area and a small dog.
Yeah, but the entranceway, there's
Yeah.
only one entranceway for both of them. When they both go into one's coming out, one's going in,
Mhm.
sometimes there's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And they were one of the people in the small dog park had asked me if it was possible to have a side-by-side entranceway for the small dog park with the fence separating them and going into the big dog park, if you understand what I mean.
Issues with that? Yeah.
Councilman, it's pretty standard in a dog park, and we'll be sure this is built into the construction of this dog park, is that there is an entrapment area once you get inside the main gate before you go into the particular dog park that you're going to, whether you're going to the small park or the large park. And that separate entrapment area is for the specific purpose of isolating one large dog from a small dog and preventing those types of problems. So that's a standard design feature in dog parks.
Okay, they said people don't exactly adhere to it. From the big dog parks, they'll bring them in while the small dogs are in there. That's what I've been hearing in there anyway.
So part of the design, the contract with Davis and Floyd and and Wooden Partners would be that we have meetings with the dog park. We programmed them in, it is in the design, and so we will get as much input as we can from them, as well as following what is the normal standard. The current dog park really was not, from my understanding, is we put up fences and we really didn't, it wasn't designed by professionals in a sense. And it was early on whenever dog parks were not what they are today. So that will always be a consideration, and we'll bring it up to standards, to the normal standards.
Okay, I just promised I'd pass it along, so I kept my promise.
No, but we added in those meetings, made sure that that was a very important part of the design for that dog park area. We weren't just using the surveys,
I know.
we're using all of it, and I think that's.
Thank you.
Council stakeholder engagements are a standard RFQ and contract language that we're using in all of our contracts moving forward that involve designs.
Public was very, very involved with everything with it.
Yes, sir.
Comment and then a question for clarification. On page 26, talks about the permitting phase, this going before the DRB. So I'll just point out that would be the planning commission now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on page 29, maybe this is just a lack of my understanding because I haven't looked at one of these, but it talks about Davis and Floyd and the design team shall review and approve or take other appropriate action upon the contractor's submittals applying to their work such as shop drawings, product data, and samples, but only for the limited purposes of checking for conformance with information given. Review of such submittals is not for the purpose of determining the accuracy or completeness of other information such as dimensions, quantities, or installation or performance of equipment or systems. And then if you move down to J, it says Davis and Floyd and the design team's site observations shall be conducted with the client to check conformance of the work with requirements of the contract documents and to verify the accuracy and completeness of the list submitted by the contractor. So I guess my question is, what is the difference in what's in the contract and then what is produced in the shop drawings, product data, and samples? Because if they're not responsible for reviewing accuracy in the shop drawings, product data, and samples, but they are responsible for ensuring accuracy in regards to the contract documents, there must be a difference in between the two.
So paragraph H is primarily to protect Davis and Floyd, their engineering licenses. They can't stamp other people's work. They can't generally don't do fully independent reviews. They would review the work to determine, yes, this meets industry standards, but they wouldn't go in and tell the other, any contractor or subcontractor how to actually do their calculations, do their work. The contract documents or the contracted process in section J is primarily to when they go out and they do site inspections with us. We do the monthly OAC on-site inspections, walking through, making sure that the electrical drawings are being done in conjunction with the building drawings and the landscape architecture is being done in conjunction with I don't know what other type of designs there would be for the dog park if there's something special, but it's more of the on-site, making sure things are going according to contract, that things are on time, and that we're, ordering things within the appropriate lead time, just keeping everybody, basically project management.
So then, I guess, in another document, the city would be protected by ensuring that the contractor was then responsible for the shop drawings, the product data
That's-
and stuff. Okay.
That's correct. Yes, sir. It would be whatever licensed professional stamped that document.
Understood. That's all I have on that one.
Yes, sir.
On page 21, 13 under basis of, number 13 on the basis of design,
Yes, sir.
the raised planting beds for use as community gardens.
Yes, sir.
Could you share with me how that will all come about?
That would be a Linda question because I wasn't involved. Do you know about the community gardens aspect?
So the community gardens would be there, that would be part of the design phase. And we would vet all of that before we put it into construction documents. So there will be partners and I'm sure you will be involved in making sure that we've got that. We have talked with Wooden Partners about the raised planters. She's got the all of the information, they've got all of the information. So, and we've already been thinking through how that would go and where they would be placed.
Okay.
And that's near the entrance,
Thanks,
as
Linda.
we've talked before.
And then one follow-on question, and I guess this would be page 35, the diagram, this pictorial.
Mhm.
M talks about a half-court basketball, 42 by 50.
We removed that a long time ago.
All right, good. I just wanted to make
So
sure.
you got your
Yep.
full court.
Actually.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's clarified. Go
And
ahead,
the
Linda. I'm
new
sorry.
park, part of the playground is where the half basketball court was gonna go.
Yeah.
So we removed that out of our construction documents.
Okay, yeah.
Long before.
As
Thanks.
far as the order of everything, it's more like domino effect, I think. I would leave it to Woods and Associates.
Yeah.
See what comes, the order of it, because it's more of a domino type thing on what this one depends on this depends on that. So, I mean, I think it's more for them to kind of guide us in the order of it.
That's correct. That's why I kind of gave it as a range. So this is the doing everything full-fledged versus the lower number of potentially not necessarily doing everything all on phones, Phil Swoop, possibly adding a phase 3 in later. We plan to leave that to the professionals to bring that back to us and say, this is the approach that we're recommending based on the input we're receiving and the designs we're working on.
How long is it going to take for phase 2? Did you give that?
We haven't hammered down an exact time.
Okay.
A lot of that will depend on permitting and just how involved the various stakeholder groups are in the input process. As you know, sometimes these projects go very smooth. Sometimes it takes a little while to go back to the drawing board quite a bit.
A lot of that's involved with the wetlands, the trails and all that. Can they start on that now with the permitting, or they get?
They could, that's something if we, enter into the authorization and go ahead and start that, that's probably going to be one of the things that are high up on the list. Let's go ahead and do this so that we can go ahead and get started on the permitting process because it's going to take a long time. That would be my guess.
Say one more thing. Thank you, Linda.
Yes.
Anything else on South Side phase 2? What's up next?
Do you want to give public
Yeah.
comment?
Is there any public comment on phase 2, South Side Park?
All right.
Hearing none, you're up.
That brings us to the proposal for Pigeon Point Landing. We went out to bid on a design build contract. We made separable scopes of work for the boat ramp and dock, the master planning, and any grading or other services that would need to be done. Because we heard the priority was the dock, the existing dock and boat ramp. We had some interest during the RFQ process, but we only received one RFQ for, or one proposal that came from O'Quinn Marine Construction. It is the staff's recommendation that we proceed at the very least with phase one scope of services. I'm just going to give a quick summary of that. I'm going to turn it over to Raul because he understands construction and marine terminology better than I do. But the phase one scope of services does fit within our existing budget. It allows us some time to continue to pursue grant opportunities for the full work, but it's a bonding, a full survey of the entire park. So basically an as-built of where we are, the boat landing, parking, boat ramp, existing float, existing piles, getting a critical line signed off by the Bureau of Coastal Management, which is the new name for OCRM. So I apologize, you'll hear me use both terms. A conceptual layout of any new or existing amenities and furnishing all those drawings to city staff for input. And that would, the full survey would then influence the permitting, final design, and engineering. There was some questions raised today about ownership of Pigeon Point Landing. We did find the original deed that was shared with all of council. The property was deeded to the city in 1929, and that issue was explored with the city attorney at the time, Bill Harvey, back in 2015. But we provided council with all of those documents, so we do own the landing. So I feel comfortable certifying that when we apply for any grant funding on this. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Raul.
While he comes up, I'll just say something to be thankful for. On that deed from 1929, it showed that the park that we were just talking about was actually reserved for a hotel. Obviously, that did not move forward, so we're thankful for that.
So Nate also has some background on this, obviously, since he's been here a little bit longer, but after a pre-bid meeting with O'Quinn Marine, which obviously we all understand, he's been here a long time, probably knows every dock along that river very well. The discussions led us to where and why we're having the issues with that dock. And most of those issues are related to an elevation problem. The dock was installed in a way where at each tide cycle, it does not fluctuate well in the up and down with the tide. And at low tide, it actually sometimes, depending on the tide, sits in the mud, which exacerbates the problem of the big yachts coming through. Our younger generation wants to explore how fast they can make their boats go by, and causing the wakes, which also causes those docks to slam, not just against the pillars, but against the hinges that are holding them together one to the other. So after a lot of discussion there with O'Quinn and looking at options, we came to the determination of doing this conceptual plan of what it would look like to rebuild the dock, the boat ramp, and the landing area in general, because that also needs some structural work to go along with the refurbishment of that dock. There's some stormwater processes that we will need to take as well. And just as a point of information, those I want to say OCRM, but those permits are taking anywhere from 16 to 18 months to gather. So that, I know it is quite a long time, but it also provides us the opportunity to look and see where we're going in that timeframe as we submit for permits if we wish to move further with the refurbishment of that boat landing. Now, as a side, I mean, that is really, when we look at boat landings in our area, that Pigeon Point landing is a gem within our city because it's mostly used by families to put their boats in the river versus our other landings, which are used by everyone and overwhelmed by the traffic. So I just want to share those portions of those conversations with O'Quinn. The pillars that are there will have to be replaced. There's a minor undermining of the boat ramp, of course, with all the beatings that it's taken with the storms and again, the wakes. So that will be taken care of once we do that. One of the other great benefits of this project is just off to the park, because there's been talk about kayaks and launching kayaks. So the other part of this benefits the city as well and the stakeholders, because we can add an actual kayak ramp off to the side by where that pier is or the lookout is. They can work a kayak ramp launch in there with a dock, which you can access at any tide. So that's kind of where the conversations have led. Nate, do you have anything extra to add to that?
They're gonna go out a little deeper on the ramp itself,
On the boat ramp?
because I've been there before and Owen, I know you put your boat in a bunch of times, but there've been times and actually, if you're dropping your trailer in, it's sort of a low tide and all that, it'll actually drop off and the current, you're trying to get your boat up and your trailer's doing this.
Yes, sir. There is talk about extending and working the length of the ramp in this
I know they did that at Whitehall,
phase. Yes, sir.
and it's gonna be a single lane.
A single lane, it is a single lane. Looking at the possibility of two, but a single lane. Also looking at the possibility of angling the dock in a manner where it'll receive the in and outgoing tide and the wakes as the boats go by. So there's been that conversation as well. So that'll be part of the design.
Comments, questions?
I do have a question. I guess I have to assume by looking at this that there really is no way to make this usable prior to 2027, right? Which seems unfortunate. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I guess with the pricing that we see here, my question would be, do these costs factor in CPI to some degree to try to capture what inflation would provide, or are these estimates in today's dollars?
I believe Mr. O'Quinn has captured that increase in these numbers.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anybody from the public want to speak? Patrick, you're up first. Give us your name and address, please.
Patrick Canning, 212 Burrows Ave, Beaufort City. Evening, Mayor, Council. So once again, we've got a grand plan with over a $2 million price tag on a boat ramp that needed to be repaired for just about a year now. And it looks to be about 3+ years from the point of damage until we may be able to reuse it. The county has done many, I'm sure all you are aware of this, the boat landings throughout Beaufort County, they have done many of them. The price tag on replacing just the dock portion of this is somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000. But we're doing this $2+ million project, and we're gonna beautify it and expand parking and put drainage in and maybe bathrooms or what have you. It's just, we just need the functionality back, and it shouldn't take 3 years. I brought this up at the strategic meeting the beginning of this year. And here we are, 11 months later, and we haven't done anything. We haven't executed the engineering, we haven't executed anything. And I understand the engineering, it was requested to do it this way. I believe this is correct, design build, but I thought the phasing was going to be broken out in the dock. Now, I understand the ramp's got issues, it's got undermining, and then now maybe the angle is not correct, and maybe repositioning it's going to be impacted further, but just, I think we're out of line here.
It still is phased, my understanding.
Phasing is going to be survey, engineering, and construction, not construction or engineering construction of the dock and the ramp. It's phased as survey, engineering, construction of the
Gotcha.
entire.
That's kind of how I interpreted the phasing as well, back when we originally talked about it, was phasing it in such a way that if possible, you would make the ramp usable again, and then we would move forward with the
Right.
phase 2, phase 3 portion, which maybe would be addressing the parking and the drainage and some of the others.
If I may address that very quickly, that was the intention, that was the way the RFQ went out, or RFP went out. All the engineers that took interest in this, including O'Quinn, expressed that they didn't believe the existing layout would work. There were concerns that we would be having the same maintenance issues ongoing. I have here the file from Public Works. This is just our maintenance within the past 5 years that we've done on this dock. That totals approximately $45,000 that we put in the past 5 years. Talking with the county about, with their engineering team, looking at O'Quinn's proposal, having them go out, walk the property. This was their recommendation, and it aligns with the other engineers that we've spoken to who didn't bid on the project because for various reasons.
So, and I think just hearing that, I think long-term, what's being proposed here is undoubtedly the way to fix it. But I guess my question would be, in the short term, just to get us through the 2 years and have something that is usable, the maintenance on 5 years is $35,000. So I guess the maintenance on 2 years could be, $15,000 or whatever. But is there a way for us to just kind of put back what was there and have it to where it can be used and then maintained for 2 years as we go through the process of figuring out what the long-term solution is?
Is there overhead to reach the city?
The proposal,
Mayor, Council. The folder that JJ held up here, I did a lot of digging and going back, even before I was the Public Works Director, even worked for the city of Beaufort. It looks at 2015, they had that plan. They went in and they repaired and replaced to make it to where they could get it down the road, to get it to where they could work on it and rebuild it and function it later. And it ended up going by the wayside. And it went, and then it ended up with $5,000 of maintenance every year, $10,000, having McSweeney come and do studies, replacing pieces here, pieces there, until the same thing happened again. And the entire dock needed to be repaired and replaced. And so I would say from 2015 to 2024, if we went back and put what was existing, you're probably looking at somewhere around $100,000 just to put a dock back out there. I would say maybe 75,000. I don't have the full price on me in here, but would it be kicking the can down the road again? Would be my question. And I would hope that we consider what O'Quinn has brought, because he was the one originally back in 2015 that said that we needed to do an entire new dock and ramp back then as well.
Yeah, in my mind, it absolutely wouldn't be, the intention would not be to kick the can down the road. And it seems like that's probably where the mistake was made, is that it fell through the cracks, not necessarily the fact that they put something there that could get them by, but the fact that they allowed that to justify ignoring it for 10 years or putting Band-Aid fixes and just, trying to work with the Band-Aid instead of actually bringing the long-term solution to fruition. So again, with it being, potentially $75,000, I guess the question is that expense worth usability for the families that use this for the next 2-3 years, while we figure out and go through the permitting process of a long-term solution? I would say for myself, right now, the answer would probably be yes. I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels about that, but I'm glad to know at least there's an understanding that maybe we could put something back to make it usable while we work through the rest of this.
Council, I believe the way the RFP was issued, we could potentially, I'd have to speak to legal counsel and go back and look at our procurement code, but I mean, we could potentially ask O'Quinn if we wanted to enter into this contract and begin this process to, when they do the survey, say is there a safe temporary solution that can be put into place while we do the rest of this? And what kind of price are we looking at there? I don't think that it would be unreasonable to add that. I can find out. Would that address your concerns?
Yes, that would. And I guess two things. So one, that, two, if for some reason that's not a feasible option, do we have a plan to coordinate with the county the potential overflow from people not being able to use this landing and having to go to other landings that are already overpressured?
The county's aware, and I just had the same conversation with Port Royal on Friday about the sands, because they're saying for that, anywhere $150,000 minimum expense, and they're expecting 90 days out on floating docks because of all the damage, storm damage recently. So they're aware. We're trying to coordinate as well as we can, but there's only so much that we can do on that front.
Understood.
So I think what I'm hearing, if I could restate back to you and council, tell me if I'm misunderstanding. We recognize there is a long-term fix needed here. We want to maintain the quality of Pigeon Point Landing as far as the intimacy of it. We want to incorporate all of that feedback from the over 300 person survey that we got about keeping it a quaint, smaller landing. But we recognize there is a need. And we think O'Quinn has encompassed that long-term need. But at least from Councilman Scoletti's standpoint, we should at least explore as part of this a potential temporary solution and bring that pricing back to council as we begin the full assessment of the existing piles and boat ramp to determine if a temporary solution is possible. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, no, they're gonna have to re-angle. I mean, even a temporary fix may require some.
I don't know.
Okay.
There's still people launching their boats. Somebody permanently borrowed our road barriers this weekend that were out there, so they're still launching them.
Yep, I don't know if there's consensus support for that, but that's exactly what.
I saw all four heads nodding
Yeah.
in approval, so I'm gonna take it
Yeah,
that
take a
way.
look. Yeah, let's
Okay.
explore.
I think that's a good way ahead.
So we're addressing the long-term solution, but we want to determine, is there a temporary solution and what the cost of that would be while addressing the long-term solution, so we're not kicking the can down the road. Sound good?
And I think it'll provide us an informed way ahead.
Okay. Great. Thank you, council. Any other questions about the Pigeon Point landing?
Patrick, you have another comment? You can stand behind him. We'll just have a line.
Just to
going.
be clear, I'm not suggesting a temporary fix. I'm not suggesting we spend $75,000. In my mind, that would be wasteful. What we should do is try to work on replacing the dock and returning functionality to the landing. The dock would be constructed the same way the county is doing it. They've got double piles, not a single. The dock that we have in place is the lake dock. It's not meant for,
Ocean.
for low country, waterways here. That's what I'm saying.
You're right, yeah. Yes, sir. Could you give us your name and your address?
My name's Jim Glad. I live at 904 Woodward Ave. And I think 2027 is way too long to wait for that to get done. I mean, I'm down to that dock several times a day. First thing in the morning, I walk through there. I can't leave my house. If I go to the store, I go by that dock. And I meet a ton of people down there. It's not just the families that put their boats in there. There's Dave the crabber that goes out every day, the commercial crabber. There's Sea Eagle guys that go out to get their oysters. I meet Marines, parents every week that are here for graduations down there. And local people that catch their fish, their crab, their poor, they rely on that dock to catch their food. And up until yesterday, there was 2 sections there and it was usable. Now you took that out. Somebody comes in, they jump out of the boat, there's all oysters there. The 2 sections were working as a little temporary thing. But I mean, I really wanted the big dock back, but 2027 to wait for a dock to get done, I think something needs to be done now so it can be used. And it's used, you look at when it's a water festival, how many boats go in, shrimp festival, there's tons of boats that go in to go downtown, so that listen to the music out on the sandbar, and the dock really needs something there temporarily now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Sorry, it's me again.
Sorry.
I just want to clarify something that Raul said that may have been misconstrued. You said families using the boat launch, and that's not just Pigeon Point families by any means. That's people from all over. Those of us who live in Pigeon Point know that there is a constant stream of people with boats coming through our neighborhood to get to the Pigeon Point boat landing. I don't want tonight to sound like we're asking you for special favors for Pigeon Point. These are all very special places to us, but there are places that are used by people from all over. So just wanted to make that point. And I agree with Jim. It sounds like a long time. And if you can figure out what to do in the meantime, be great. Thank you.
Anyone else? AJ? You're going to explore a temporary fix?
Move forward with a long-term solution and explore a temporary fix, or if a fix can be done in a shorter period of time that is long-term, we'll explore all options. There's no further questions about Pigeon Point Landing. We'll move into the waterfront park relieving platform proposal. We received 3 bids for this project. Team reviewed those, interviewed the top 2, and McSweeney Engineering was hands down the staff's top recommendation, and it's staff's recommendation that we enter into a contract for services with McSweeney Engineers for this. Can remind council what we were asking for is a full, complete geological, marine construction engineering study of the waterfront park to determine exactly what are we dealing with. Step 1. Then step 2, taking that information and bringing it back to council or a committee, but to the city, and saying, here are your options moving forward. phased approaches, having to do everything all at once, we don't know what that's going to look like. And I think McSweeney did a very good job of breaking this project down into 4 phases. On page 42, they recommend that we begin with phase 1A, and we will go ahead and we currently have $450,000 of ARPA funds budgeted towards this project. The total estimate for phase 1A is $255,182. The difference from that 450,000, we would build into the contract that money to go towards phase 1B and 2, if there's any left over, because that is ARPA funds, so it does have to be obligated before the end of the year. Phase 1A that would begin immediately is the preliminary data collection and modeling. Throughout the proposal, they do, I believe, a very good job of breaking down what each of the tasks are in that portion. And that should, between phase 1A and phase 1B, sometime hopefully early next year, give us a good idea of exactly where we are structurally with Waterfront Park, not just the piles that can be reached, but the entire park, and lay a good foundation for the engineers to go in and tell us what can we do from here moving forward. Does council have any questions about this proposal?
You answered one question that I had, which was, I didn't see a timeline for when they expect to be done with 1A, but you said early next year?
They didn't give us a specific timeline because we don't really know what they're gonna find as they get in there, but the goal would be for this to be concluded within the first half of the year, if at all possible. They know we want to move as fast as possible on this. They understand the priority of the project.
Okay. And then just one more thing for clarification. After phase 1A is done, we should be able to have a structural analysis to the point of understanding what remaining service life is left in the structure, or would that have to be from some information collected in phase 1B?
So we should have the majority of that information we would need. This would basically be an as-built for us of what exists in place right now.
Okay.
Phase 1B, the final data collection and modeling, is kind of taking that to the next step and laying the foundation for providing us with potential options moving forward.
Okay.
How long do you think it'll be before we get to 1B?
Well, again, if everything goes great, hopefully it'd be about a 6-month process, but we don't know until they really get in there and find out. They weren't comfortable giving us an exact time unless, no, none of the follow-up conversations were they comfortable with that, because there's so much underneath there that's going to have to be assessed. The boring, the geological boring is going to have to be done. There's a lot to this. It's a 6-page proposal with breakdowns for each task.
So I see that in regards to understanding the structural assessment and the capacity determination, they're going to take into consideration the original design plans and then the previous information that they were able to obtain from past studies. Would there be merit on the city's part to adding those past studies into our capital improvement projects portal? Because right now we have the most recent one from 24, but we don't have the previous studies.
Yes, as we gather that data, I thought I'd already put in the 2014 study. If I haven't, I'll make sure that's in
That
there.
one's in there. I didn't see the previous studies
Okay.
in the portal. So I've been wrong once before on the portal tonight, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see anything other than the most recent one we got.
I will check. The only ones that I have personally seen were the ones that was conducted this year, and then I believe it was the 2014 one, but I'll,
And there's a 2019.
2019, I'm sorry, 2019 one, but we'll work on collecting those and getting that in there. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're going to be checking with the critical line. I think that's going to be key as to what options we have with this park.
Yes, Yes, sir.
I hope that's gonna be in phase 1A.
Yes, sir.
So as we look at this diagram outlined here, so are all large structures or any large building structure affected by the study that's ongoing that we will be doing on this relieving platform?
That's what the geological surveying is, to make sure, to determine if they have to come in and do new boring, if they have to come, if we have to say we had to start over from scratch, worst case scenario here, exactly how is that going to affect the adjoining properties? And that's why that part of Bay Street is incorporated into that.
You have to put in pilings, you're gonna
Yeah.
affect
Yeah.
those buildings.
Yes, my understanding is when those were going in, it shook the entire area, so we have to study the entire area because that's going to be a part of our permitting process. They're going to know how are you going to affect
Yeah.
adjoining properties.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else from council?
You got anything else?
If you want to open up to the public, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, anybody from the public want to speak? Patrick, I saw you make a move, did you?
My name's Mary Bonsbach, 29 Christine Drive. I'm new to the area, so I don't know exactly the procedures that you guys all follow. So with this park, this is very important to Beaufort. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I visited this. It's the only thing I have visited. Do you notify the community of when you're bringing in the plans for the park, the design plans, so that the community has input? Do you send out like emails or letters or?
Oh, yes, there'll be all kind of chances for the public to get access. This will be in the papers, I'm sure. This is a big issue.
Okay,
It's our
yeah.
crown jewel.
I was just checking. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Anything? Is that it, JJ, or we got some more?
That is it. Does council have any questions about any projects, anything the capital improvements team is doing? Comments or concerns? I know this has been a relatively long meeting, and as we get into the flow of doing these every quarter, we do this new capital planning process, incorporate that into our strategic planning processes. I'm hoping this gets where it flows a little quicker, but I think it's incredibly important to have these work sessions open, available to the public, recorded online, where people can go back. I go back and look at these all the time to make sure I'm being consistent.
Yeah, and when we get these, if we could have maybe a sharper timeline on
Yeah.
where we are and where we need to go, that kind of thing.
And that's something we're building out within the system internally. It's just, there's a lot going on in this city, so everybody's stretched pretty thin, and it's just been a matter of trying to slow down on the front end to do these processes right, so that hopefully by this time next year, again, things are running much smoother and we're not constantly going back 5, 10, 15 years to deal with issues that none of us were around for.
Well, thank you.
Question regarding some of our bids that we get back, because it seems like it's very inconsistent. Sometimes we won't get bids, sometimes we'll get one, sometimes we'll get three, and sometimes it's on the same project. So I guess my question is, are we internally looking at any ways in which we can better advertise our bids, or maybe reach out to and maybe this is something that staff's already doing, but reach out to local businesses that we know specialize in those fields, just to make sure they're aware of the bids or the RFQs. So just a general question, is there anything that we can do better to make sure that those opportunities have exposure?
Yeah, we're constantly assessing that. That is a large part of what Jay Phillips does. When we put these out, he doesn't just put them online and they sit. He's actively reaching out to contractors or engineering firms that we've worked with in the past, any others that we know. I know Raul's brought a lot of new options to the table that he shared with them. I had a marine engineer reach out to me today, shared that information with them. So we're constantly building that list for, say, the Carnegie Library project that went out multiple times for bids. He was reaching out to historic preservation societies all across the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, reaching out to St. Augustine, because they have a lot of the clay tile roofs, reaching out to companies there. It's a very active process. It's not just putting it out and sitting back and waiting. Unfortunately, talking to my colleagues here in North and South Carolina, everybody's running into the same issues. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on infrastructure and facilities, public facilities. It's somewhat of a niche area. A lot of businesses don't like to bid on public projects because of the scrutiny, because of the amount of paperwork that has to go into it, that they wouldn't necessarily have to do on a private project. So, and again, there's so much work to go around. It's something we're seeing all over. I'm hoping we were hoping as ARPA money came to an end, that would see an increase in bids. But then we had Helene come through, and now everybody in the Southeast is just slammed with this kind of work. So I don't know when or if we're going to see a slowing down of that, but we are actively, and that's a large part of the fiscal controls policies that we're doing, sitting down, taking our time up front to go through each one, assigning them out to teams within finance and capital projects or whatever department is affected by that particular policy, and saying, what can we do better? Internally, what best practices are out there? What are our colleagues in other cities and towns doing well? You know, what are we seeing, reading about from the municipal association or in the news that we don't want to do? So that it's a constant ongoing process of, like Scott said at the strategic planning session this year, sometimes you got to slow down so that you can go fast. We got to focus on those foundations.
Thank you.
Sir.
Well, if there's no more comment or anything from council, before I adjourn, on behalf of council, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and also wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. And with that, we are adjourned.